Thanks to my fellow ASMP members for inviting me to present tonight. This summer, I've been learning some new skills about infrared photography, which I hadn't even really heard of before June. But what I'm gonna share with you is how I got interested in it, and then what were the steps I took, and and how I ended up now feeling really enthusiastic about it. And so I will be interested to see if after tonight's presentation, if any of you are interested in playing with it. So let me share my screen. I titled my presentation this way because it struck me really funny that a couple weeks ago, my husband, Charlie, who's here listening tonight, said to me, "Why are you doing infrared photography?" And it was a funny question to hear from him because, you know, we've been quarantine buddies, and he's been hearing me kind of talk to myself about, you know, I think I'm going to get a new camera so that I can do infrared photography. And he says, okay. And oh, I'm gonna sign up for some online training with Don Smith, and then a couple weeks later, I'm gonna sign up for some online training with Dan Wampler. I'm gonna go out and shoot some infrared photographs. Oh, look at my latest infrared photograph. So after weeks and weeks and weeks of hearing me jabber on about this, he asked me why I'm doing it. So it got me thinking because as you know, and I know you all feel this way, loving photography, traditional photography has limitless possibilities. It has limitless, it's a fantastic creative outlet. You can you can have any kind of a style you choose. You can specialize in sports or portraits or weddings or commercial, or, you know, you can do, as you know, I'm preaching to the choir. You can do so much with it. So why would you even think about some offshoot such as infrared photography? So what I'm going to share with you is how I got started. So, okay, so as you know, it's, we're not traveling these days. And so it was June, and I got back to Sewickley from Florida, and there are no trips on the horizon. And I'm saying to myself, you know, what am I going to do? I've never been really inspired with my immediate surroundings at home, because I've been lucky enough to do lots of traveling, and the traveling has been what inspires me to shoot. You know, seeing different cultures and how people are different, and customs and colors. And, you know, I've been to China and Australia and lots of fascinating places. So I'm thinking, what am I going to do at home this summer? So while I'm wondering that, I'm also looking at Facebook probably way too often. And I keep in touch with a terrific landscape photographer named Don Smith, with whom I have done workshops. And we've done workshops in Bryce Canyon, Zion National Park, Kauai, where else did we go? Grand Teton National Park. And I've also already enrolled and sent in a deposit to go to Iceland with Don Smith and another photographer, Gary Hart. We were supposed to go in January, but that plan has been postponed for a year. So it's going to be January of 2022 now. So anyway, so I'm staying at home, which gave me the opportunity to learn something and to, you know, throw myself into learning something new, which normally I wouldn't have the time for. So let me show you, rather than going to Facebook, I am going to just briefly show you, this is Don Smith's website, just to give you a flavor for, he's a fantastic landscape photographer, uses color quite a bit. He, his technical knowledge and his artistry, I think, are excellent. And I've learned a lot from him, and I enjoy keeping in touch with him. I've really become good friends with Don and Gary both, and they're really great because if you email them a question, they will always respond. And even though they're quite busy with new activities and shooting and processing and posting and marketing. So anyway, there is a gallery here called World of Infrared, which I just clicked on. And so Don, he lives near San Jose. And for you sports photographers, he was the official sports photographer for the San Jose Sharks for, I don't know, something like 15 years. He just retired from doing that. So he was doing all of his workshops in the off season, the hockey off season. But anyway, he started doing infrared years ago, but he picked it up again recently because of the lockdown. So these are some of his images. And I was particularly attracted to his black and whites. I'll just click on a couple of them so you can see them larger. So this is kind of a classic infrared look, a dark sky and foliage that appears white. So the grass and the leaves would appear white. Let me go back. I mean, he did some things like this, but this didn't really turn me on because this was just a little too weird for my taste. The good thing about infrared is there's a million different ways to do things, but you can really pick what appeals to your taste. So here's another landscape shot that he has converted to black and white. You see, one of the things that I love about this is the contrast. You know, the blacks are really black and the whites are really white. And it also, you know, there's a lot of clarity in these images too. He's lucky to live near Big Sur, so he's got something a little more than Point State Park in his backyard. Not knocking Point State Park, but I wish I lived near Big Sur. So here's another one. Is there anything you see? Oh, here's one that he's given it a tone, like a brown tone, perhaps in Silver Effects Pro, I'm not sure. But it just shows you the different things different ways you can process an image. This one is pretty cool. So back to my personal chronology. I was seeing these photos on, that's the Hearst Castle up on the hill there, on Facebook, and I was intrigued. So I asked Don about it. At the same time, oh, here's Big Sur again. At the same time, I was taking we were all cleaning out our closets. I was taking an inventory of the cameras I had, the ones that have been just sitting on the shelf since I upgraded to my more recent cameras. So I have a Nikon D700 that I haven't used in years. So I thought, well, I wonder if I could convert that camera to infrared. So I emailed Don about that. He wrote back immediately and said, no, really you can't, because you're going to have trouble focusing. So the long and short of that was, you need a mirrorless camera. And if you don't have a mirrorless camera, the focal point, the place at which you focus is different with infrared light. So let's say that rock, is 15 feet away. Well, in infrared light, when visible light, you might focus on it at 15 feet, but in infrared light, it might be 16 feet. So if you focus with visible light, the infrared light will be out of focus. So I thought, oh, darn it. Well, that kind of blows that idea. But fortunately, that wasn't the end of the story. So I was going to have to buy another camera. But what I did was I sold a couple of my lenses. One of them I sold to Archie, and so far so good. He's been enjoying it. And so I raised the money to buy. Don suggested going to B&H and buying a used Sony A6300, which is a little camera. So I'm holding it up so you can see. You can see the lens is like the traditional Sony lens. This is a wide angle for the Sony, but the camera is a little thing. So it doesn't add much weight to my bag, and I can use the full family of Sony lenses that I have. So that sounded like a good idea. And also the menus and the way it works is very similar to the Sony R3 and R2 and R4 that I have. So it was pretty easy to learn about how it works. So between looking at Don's work and realizing I had lots of time at home, I decided I might embark upon this journey. So why do it is still the question that Charlie was asking. Well, I think the main reason, as I pondered his question, is that you can be really creative with it. And that's what I am hoping to show you in the presentation. So it's going to take me a few slides and examples to show you how you can be creative. But first of all, what is it? Infrared light is invisible to the eye. So it's kind of intriguing to think about that you can't see it. And so as you capture it, you're capturing something brand new. So in a way, it's a little bit like, uncovering a mystery. If you want, so my second bullet point here, if you want, you can include a segment of the visible light spectrum. Well, this was all Greek to me. I didn't know anything about this, but the way you have your camera converted, and the reason you have to have a camera converted is in every camera, there is a filter that blocks infrared light. It acts like a mirror. It just bounces it back out so that the infrared light does not hit your sensor. So the reason you have to have a camera modified is you have to have that mirror or filter taken out. And then you can decide how much visible light you want to have in addition to the infrared light. And I'm going to show you, I have a little video that will show you what the choices are and why you would choose one over the other, because it's kind of interesting. It's tough that before you even get started, you have to make this choice about how to convert your camera because you haven't even gotten a chance to play with it yet. But this website and the company that I worked with provides a lot of information that's really helpful, and I'll be sharing that with you. Okay, so back to creativity. as you let go of the traditional image, okay, you're working with infrared light, which doesn't look like visible light. And you might have a part of the visible light spectrum, but not all of it. So you're going to have an image that doesn't look like reality. And if you automatically assume that the image that you're going to make is not going to look like reality, it's perfectly fair that you can play with it, and you can make it look any way you want. You can make it look mystical, you can make it look vivid and sharp, you can make it just gold and monochrome, you can make it look just blue and monochrome. You can, I mean, there are a lot of different possibilities, but it's totally fair to play with it as much as you want, and to make and to define your own style. So what I have done in the course of learning about this is that you can discover many different ways to process your images. And, you know, Don Smith said to me, you know, a couple of times early on, have fun with it, Cathy. And at first I wasn't having fun because I needed to learn the skills. I didn't have the skills yet. But once I learned the skills, then now I'm at the point where I am having fun with it. So I would recommend it. And I'm going to show you lots of examples. So I apologize if I seem to be speaking in generalities, but another kind of cool thing about infrared is that if you practice infrared photography, you will set yourself apart, because, you know, just look at our peer group here in Pittsburgh. Not very many people are doing it. And I've also found that a side benefit of learning these new skills is that it has improved my processing skills when it comes to processing traditional photography. So it that was just a lucky benefit. Didn't know that would happen, but I feel like I can do a much better job of processing a traditional photograph now. So the other thing I just want to add is, if you're a journalist like Archie and Shelley, infrared is a complete departure from what you do for work, because what you do for work, you know, you're really not supposed to process it such that it's unrealistic. But this practice, infrared photography, is completely unrealistic and gives you a lot of artistic freedom. Any questions so far?
I gotta say, one of the what's his name, Bob McCulloch? No, he's one of the top Sports Illustrated photographers.
Yeah.
He did some golf courses, and he was we were shooting some tournament, and he was on his belly behind the golfer with the fairway in the distance, and kind of getting just the golfer swinging. And it was a 3-line fairway, and he did it with an infrared. It must have been published in Sports Illustrated, because I don't know how else I would have seen it.
Yeah.
So you know, when you have people that are creative like him, that yes, they do take photos, or sports photos, but they're pieces of beauty and art, and they take it to another level.
Oh, nice.
And that's where I first got, wow, I can't believe what that looks like.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see your stuff.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, next, the question of the camera. You know, if you got interested in this, you wouldn't have to do it exactly how I did it, but so I wanted to share with you what the considerations are. So the reason you choose a digital mirrorless camera is, as I explained about the focal distance, it's different for infrared light and for visible light. So if you want to be able to focus properly, the mirrorless works. And what a digital camera does for you is it gives you so many great possibilities when it comes to processing. So I was reading on a website about how infrared is not a brand new thing. Like there used to be film-based infrared cameras, but that was really, those were really hard to work with because you had to be really careful with light leaks. And I read that people would tape like all the seams on their camera to make sure no light leaked in, and then the processing would have to be done in complete darkness. You wouldn't have a red light on in the room. And in addition, as you were looking through the camera, you wouldn't be able to see anything. You would see darkness because you wouldn't have any visible light coming in. So it was really kind of literally a shot in the dark if you worked with film infrared. Okay, so what I have is the Sony A6300. Don Smith has both the A6300 and A6000. He has one of them converted in a way called super color, which is what I have. And the other one, the A6000, I think he has that one done in deep black and white. So there's no color in those images. And I think probably that's the camera he was using in those black and white images from Big Sur. So, but when I was doing training with Dan Wampler at LifePixel, I asked him what other cameras, because he works with all kinds of different people who just get interested in this and then sign up for, have their cameras converted and then sign up for training. So he said the Canon cameras also do a nice job. He mentioned these models, the M50, the R, or the RP. I just looked them up on B&H this afternoon. They are, they're all mirrorless cameras and they're not very expensive. They might be, say, $1,000. That's a new. So if you bought used, you could probably, you know, get something for less than that. Nikon, I think, yeah, there's also a possibility. He said just avoid Fuji because their sensor is completely different and it doesn't handle infrared as well. So those are some tips about that. So this is one of my first photos, and Shelley would recognize the scene that's in Swickley Heights Park. Everything you see that's yellow is actually green. So I took this in September. And I processed this image several different ways. I also processed the greenery as white. And then I also processed the whole thing as monochrome. So with pretty much any, if my conversion was super color, and if you go that route, you have those kinds of options with pretty much every photo that you take. So LifePixel is the company that converted my camera for me. They say their turnaround time is 3 weeks, but they had a lot of orders in June, and so it took them about 6 weeks for mine to come back. But they have a fantastic website. It's, you know, www.lifepixel.com. And I'm going to show you the website because the next thing I did after getting inspired by Don's work was I went to LifePixel and I looked at the galleries of, in particular, George Wilson and Dan Wampler. And I thought about George Wilson has some black and white images that look like they're from Florida. And then I thought, oh, maybe I can make some really great black and white images in Florida. And then that's when I first saw the blue and white images and the blue and yellow images and got interested. So I have this website right here. This is Life Pixel's website, and they have several different photographers featured. So, and you can see just by looking at what you see right now, a variety of styles. So I'm going to click on George Wilson. So like, for example, here's one of his beach images.
Very cool.
Yeah. You can see how dark the sky is where around here, where it peeks through. Let's see what else we got here. This one.
Nice.
Yeah, great. I love the contrast. I love the simplicity. I love the clarity. And as you can see, what works really well in infrared is a really simple and dramatic composition. Here's another one.
Oh, God.
Is there anything you see here you want me to click on? Here's one that's not Florida, but a different kind of a landscape. And I was primarily thinking of infrared as using it for landscapes. And I was primarily thinking we're doing black and white. So at first I was just going to go with the black and white conversion. But then I got kind of interested in, let me go back. Let me show you Dan's, this is Dan's gallery. This one's kind of cool. He lives in St. Louis. So here's a classic St. Louis scene. But you know, this is an example of why I think infrared is kind of cool. You can take an image or a scene that everyone has photographed, but if you do it in infrared, it's a complete new look. And very dramatic. And this, I'll show you I loved this photo. So this photo really sold me on the yellow and blue. And you can really control, you see the color of that sky, you can really control the color of that sky. I mean, if you wanted to make it pale blue, you could. And you can really control the hue of the yellow.
Is that in post or is that in your?
Post. Yeah, in post, you're making all those decisions.
So what program are you using for post?
Yeah, I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
Mainly you're using Photoshop, but you will start in a different program. And the other crazy thing is that, and he's done a few portraits. I mean, this is not for me. I'm probably not going to do this. But here's one that's kind of interesting that just uses a little blue in the sky.
That's cool.
Very moody. Yeah. So, okay, here's one with some more color. So, okay, so once I got finished with looking at these galleries on LifePixel, I thought, yeah, I am definitely going to try this. I was sold at that point. So let me go back. Okay, so next. So next, then the next thing I had to do was after I bought the used Sony camera, I had to decide what kind of conversion, whether to do the deep black and white, whether to do super color. So what you're choosing is, so 830 is pretty much you're only getting infrared light, I believe. And you're not going to get any color. So what that number means is it's nanometers. So it's 830 and above is all the light you're going to get. Okay, and when you choose 590 nanometers super color, which is what I chose, you get some blue and cyan and some red and yellow and mixed in with the infrared light. So that's what I chose because I wanted to play with some of these color choices. And the other thing is, with more data, you have more options. So you will have, even if you convert the whole thing to black and white, you can play with adjusting each different color individually so you can fine tune your image more. At the other end of the spectrum, you can get a full spectrum camera, which lets in all the infrared light and all the visible light. And the key is that they've taken out the infrared hot mirror, which is how your converted camera is going to differ from a normal camera. But then you could then add filters to that camera to give you the super color effect or to give you the deep black and white effect. So I suppose the full spectrum would be the most flexible. But what I want to do is to show you guys, there's a short video that Dan Wampler made. It's on the LifePixel website, and it shows really briefly what these different methods of conversion will give you and help you make that decision. Would you like to see that?
Yep.
Okay.
This is a natural color image straight out of an unmodified camera. Now let's compare this to our deep black and white filter. Our deep black and white filter is going to pull down the darkest portion of the infrared spectrum. You're going to find that it's going to require as many as 2 to 4 stops more than you would when you're shooting natural color. As a result, you're going to get dark skies, sometimes even black skies. You're going to get very white foliage. This is a great filter if your goal is to create a monochrome image with a minimal amount of post-production work in Photoshop. However, that's also the drawback to the deep black and white filter. If you're looking to do any sort of color infrared, you're going to find it quite challenging, as you would have to painstakingly mask off an area, add the color, and then put that mask back in. That is why as we go forward with the different filters, we'll be adding more color. For example, when we take it one step further, at standard IR, our standard IR image, you'll notice that we start to get some color in here. We now have some red going in our sky, and we have a slight touch of blue and cyan going to our foliage. When we go to channel swap this, and by channel swapping, we're going to go into the channel mixer. We're going to go with our red channel. We're going to change that from 100 to 0. Our blue from 0 to 100. Then we're going to go into our blue channel, and we're going to change our red from 100 and our blue to 0. Now you'll see we have a slight tint of blue to the sky and a very slight amount of color in the foliage. Sometimes a little red, sometimes a little yellow, depending on the circumstances you're shooting in. As we go forward from here, enhanced color would be our next filter. You'll notice now we have much more pronounced color. We have a stronger red in the sky, perhaps a slight bit of yellow. We have way more blue and cyan in the foliage. When we go in and we channel swap that one, we'll do this quickly, you'll now see that we have blue in the sky, we have a slight tint of yellow to the foliage, and a little more red in there. When we take it one step further, we step into super color. With super color, which is one of our most popular, super color, we now have 4 definite tones. We have red and yellow in the sky. We have blue and cyan in the foliage. This gives us the ability to do as much as we want with this. One of the reasons that super color is so popular is because you have the ability to go in quite a few different directions with it. For example, when you channel swap this image, you now have the red and yellow in the foliage. You now have the blue and cyan in the sky. If from here you want to emulate the look of a standard IR image, you simply remove the red and yellow from the foliage. You have the white foliage and the blue sky. It also gives you the ability to make a much stronger monochrome black and white image by simply going into image adjustments, black and white. And now those color tones that you have can become different shades of gray and give you the ability to control the image as you're going along. We know there's blue and cyan in the sky. We can darken those down. We know that there is red and yellow in the foliage. We can lighten or darken those up depending on the look we're trying to get. One of the reasons why Supercolor is so popular is because of its ability to emulate the different looks of infrared. As we move forward, the next one is Super Blue. Super Blue is popular because it's one of these filters that you can often take the image straight from the camera and be done. It's a one-of-a-kind sort of filter in that it pulls down the blue light spectrum and only the blue light spectrum in addition to the infrared spectrum, the end product being you have a bright blue sky and bright yellow foliage. Now, our newest one is Hypercolor. Hypercolor is unlike any other type of infrared that we have in that Hypercolor gives you a strong cyan to the sky and a strong magenta tone in the foliage. You will also find inside there, you'll find some red mixed with the magenta. You'll find some blue mixed with the red and the magenta. It's a unique filter. It offers a lot of opportunities. When you photograph people with Hypercolor, they do retain some skin tone, sort of a rosy color to their skin. Whereas with other types of infrared, people's skin tends to go pure white. Monochrome is also excellent on Hypercolor because you have such strong color tones. Once again, you can go in under image adjustments, black and white, and because you have that strong magenta, you have the ability to control the tones there. You have that strong cyan, you can darken your skies down. You can adjust your blues back and forth to get what you want. You can adjust the red the same way. Hypercolor is an interesting type of infrared. It also offers the opportunity to add other filters on as you go higher up the spectrum. Finally, we have our full spectrum conversion. A full spectrum conversion is basically your camera is going to pull in everything. You're going to get infrared, you're going to get natural color, you're going to get UV. Generally, a full spectrum camera is used for things like astrophotography, forensics. If you're going to use it for other types of photography, you would need to put a filter on it. With a full spectrum camera, you can put a bandpass filter on and shoot natural color photography, or you can put a filter on for each type of infrared, and you have the ability to shoot all these different types of infrared.
Okay. So that gives you an idea of the choice that you make up front about how to convert your camera. Okay, when it comes to shooting, now this is a photo I took at Swickley Heights Park where I've actually passed Shelley in the car because we walk our dogs here. This was also a photo taken in September when the leaves were green. The cool thing about infrared is the best time to shoot is midday and bright sunlight.
Okay.
So it's different from the traditional rules for landscape photography where you shoot sunrise and sunset. As we talked about before, I like compositions that are simple and dramatic. I use the camera on manual and shoot in RAW. And the white balance is preset by LifePixel for you. Some lenses have hotspots in that, you might get kind of a spot in the not maybe center, little off center of the image that's brighter than the rest. And you would have to try to fix this in post-processing. But LifePixel has a guide to this, which lenses have been found to have these hotspots. I guess the infrared light sometimes gets concentrated with some lenses. So in this image and many of them I've taken so far, I enjoy including the sky because I like the effect of the blue sky and playing with the hue of it. And I like seeing familiar places in a new way. Okay, then Polly asked about processing. processing was a little bit of a learning curve. So if you decided to get into this, I would suggest doing a few online sessions with Dan Wampler. There is, the most important thing, the most important first step is to set the white balance in processing. And you can't really do it in Lightroom. It just doesn't work. And the best method that I found was Dan's method, which was to use Capture One Express for Sony and use the eyedropper tool to set the white balance. And once you do that, then you can import the image into Lightroom and then go edit in Photoshop. And you can edit the same image 3 different ways if you want at that point. But I work through Lightroom because that's part of how I keep track of all my images. So I like to import, you know, every download into Lightroom. So I go through Lightroom, but mainly the processing happens in, all the processing happens in Photoshop. It's just the first step. So for Canon and Nikon, there's proprietary software for them. I'm not sure what it's called, but people at LifePixel would tell you. And then once you get into the processing, you will experiment and find your own style. Now I want to show you an example of how important white balance is. And also, there's really no right or wrong answers. And it comes down to style. But this is the same image. And I processed it on the top before I took training from Dan. And the way I white balanced this image was, I knew the fern was green. And I knew that, and I didn't think I had anything white or gray to use. And so I did white balance on the green fern. And that gave me a really nice shade of white. I could control then how bright it was. And then I had blue and cyan in the log. And so I processed it that way. And that's a legitimate approach. When I shared this image with Dan for him to show me how he would process it, he processed it totally differently. And you know what he did? He white balanced, here, I'll point to the spot with my mouse, if I can find my mouse. Yeah, he white balanced right in here on the log, which was probably yellow. And so he white balanced here, and then he ended up getting kind of the blue and the green, the blue and the yellow tones. And then I really liked how he made the fern kind of golden and the log monochrome.
Cathy, question for you.
Yeah.
Did he happen to mention, like in a situation like this, you could have a gray card with you.
Yeah.
Would it help to shoot a gray card in the scene for one shot, just to have something to white balance to?
Yeah, I have been thinking about that.
Take a portable gray card with you anywhere you go.
Yeah, I think that's another possibility that you can do that.
Okay.
You can also use a sidewalk, even though, sidewalk is not necessarily perfectly gray, but a sidewalk works. But yeah, good question. And that's something that I was thinking of too.
Just a thought, if you're going to go out to shoot landscape details like this, certainly be easy to slip a card in there and shoot one with it,
Exactly. So, okay, when it comes to processing in Photoshop, these are just a few of the techniques that I have used, a basic formula that I use. So The first step would be to white balance it. And for me, it's in Capture One Express for Sony, which is free and available on the internet. And Canon has its own proprietary software. I'm not sure what it's called. So, so the first thing is, you saw Dan do it. If he wasn't putting you to sleep in that video, you saw him channel swap. So what that means, you go into Channel Mixer, you go into the red channel, and you make red 0 and blue 100%. So everything that would be red instead is blue. And then you do the opposite with the blue channel. You go into the blue channel and you say blue 0%, red 100%. So that's always your first step. And then your second and third steps have to do with a hue saturation layer and adjusting the tone, which you can call levels. Again, when you're in both hue saturation and when you're in tone or levels, you go into each color channel. So you will go into the red channel and you can adjust the hue and the lightness of that one and the saturation of that one channel. And then you go into the yellow channel and adjust it, and the blue and the cyan. With my conversion, which is super color, I've found those are the main colors that I would adjust. Like green is pretty much not there. And also just the black, you can adjust the black and, you know, more or less black, light or light or dark on the black. And then I have also used some Nik plugins on a layer mask. And this really I got from Dan and from Don Smith, of going into Color Effects Pro and using, say, detail enhancer on just one part of the photo, or, you know, lighten center, darken the outside areas. You know, so there are different tool, presets in Color Effects Pro that can help you with processing. And if you have them on a layer, then you can just paint them in the part of the image that you want them. And using layers and masks, I always knew about it, but I never really used it that much. So that's how I feel like using all these techniques, I wouldn't channel swap with a normal image, but using 2 and 3 of these bullet points, you know, I can apply these skills to my other processing. So I don't know if Shelley is still with us, but this is the country club that's in Shelley's backyard.
I'm here.
Okay, hi Shelley. So I was just driving around the neighborhood looking for, you know, something to shoot, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And
Is that from the 9th?
yeah,
yeah,
it's from
see.
just the beginning of Pink House Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking
Yeah,
through where the
9th
pine
Street.
trees are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I cross that corner about 10 times a day.
Yeah. So, so I think it's fun to take a scene that is familiar and see it in a whole new way. And also be playing with an image that means something to you. So I've had some fun with that. And here's an image from Walker Park. This I took with my super color camera, but I converted it to black and white. And I really saw this photo as a metaphor that life is a journey. Only you choose your own path, and you should enjoy it. And here's the favorite image that I've done so far. I'm still a beginner, so I'm still learning everything, but that's my presentation, and be happy to answer or try to answer any questions you have.
Wow, that is so cool. Is that like a bird of paradise or banana?
I think it's a banana tree. It was green.
Yeah.
All that foliage was green,
Yeah. Oh, wow.
but I just,
Fascinating.
yeah. And so I used Color Effects Pro and layer masks to soften the foliage that's along the ground.
Mhm.
And then I sharpened the banana leaves because I decided that was pretty much my focal point, the banana leaves against the glass grid. And so I sharpened that area and increased the contrast in that area.
Shelley, do you think these could be, if not now, maybe someday replicated in Photoshop, these effects?
Are you asking me that question?
Yeah,
Um, well,
Cathy, I'm sorry.
yeah,
This is
may,
gonna get
I mean,
fun.
that's possible, but you know, I don't know, you can't really
Mm-mm.
end up with the same effect if you take a traditional photo.
Uh-huh. The infrareds kind of look fuzzy, or I mean, they have a certain texture to them. That
Well, in general, no, I wouldn't say they look fuzzy because like, look at this one.
no, I don't mean fuzzy, but they have a certain texture. You know, they have a fine texture.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess
That-
that's contrast.
Yeah, they can be very contrasty, or you know, you can process it. The one thing about the sun is the more, if you're out in the bright direct sun, you will get more vivid color, such as this photo. If you were in the shade, they will be much less vivid, much more muted and soft. So that's a difference. And so,
Are you're happy with what you've got, and you feel like you have a lot more to learn? Is that what I'm hearing?
well, no, I feel like I finally got all the basic skills down. So now I can have fun with it. It's like, it took me, 6 weeks or so to get these processing skills. I took some online training from Don, but I found the training from Dan Wampler was much, much better. He's been doing infrared for 17 years. It's his specialty.
Yeah.
And his white balance technique worked a whole lot better than Don's. So,
Well, they're really intriguing, and that was pretty educational, your talk, as opposed to some of ours that just show pictures. But, there were a lot of points that I certainly didn't know about, and I'm glad to hear that you found something to do during the quarantine. Really.
yeah. And I mean, the camera is pretty small. So the fact that you can do infrared during the middle of the day when you normally wouldn't be doing a whole lot of landscape photography,
Uh-huh.
means that I think it's pretty easy to kind of to throw that camera in the bag as well when you go on a trip or just out for a day with the family. Like we went to the New York Botanical Garden. This was just
So as opposed to
2 weeks ago.
as opposed to going out specifically for the infrared, just throw it in the bag and then whatever you feel like or see.
Yeah. And then if something catches your eye and you say, that might look cool in infrared, let's just try it. I mean, with digital, you're not losing anything. You shoot it and you try it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, definitely enjoyed the journey and the steps to where you're at now. And just a quick little fielding Aaron's question. It would be really tricky to get the yellows and those greens and the blues balanced out with Photoshop. I might play around with it and give it a try, but the fact that she can get it close to right out of the camera with just some tweaking, I think, the chip conversion's probably worth it. And it becomes a tool in itself, or a process in itself.
Well, I agree, Kathy, that, you can have a niche with it. So if someone's looking for that, they come looking to you.
Yeah.
Hey, Kathy, couple things I may have missed. Which particular conversion did you choose?
I chose super color.
Okay. And with that, is there like a set of specific filters that you run all the time? Or does it just go unfiltered into the lens?
Oh, no, I don't use any filters. I can actually put any lens I want on this camera. So so far I've only been using the wide angle, but you can use a zoom lens. You can use any lens you want with no filters on it. In fact, you don't need a polarizer. You can take that off.
Do you, like you can live view through it pretty well? Do you have to crank the ISO way up, or it's pretty sensitive to what's coming through?
No, pretty much. I judge the ISO as I would in a traditional photo. So, when it's really bright out, I go down to 400 or 200. And then when it's, I'm in a darker space, I might go up to 2400 or something like that. But
you don't need like 10, 15-second exposures or anything. It's pretty sensitive.
No, because I'm hand holding everything. So I'm using like a 1/250th or 1/500th. You can do a long exposure if you want to, but all of the pictures I've taken so far have been handheld. And to avoid hot spots, the general advice is to shoot between f8 and f5.6. Like, don't go up to f11 or 16, because you might develop a hot spot that then is difficult to fix. So, and there's no problem with going to f4 or something if you want to, but I've generally been keeping it in the f5.6 to f8. And then in terms of exposures, I'm just looking in camera. I can have a needle that says I'm under by 1 or over by 1, and then I make my adjustment. And then I also look at the histogram to make sure I'm not clipping anything. So that's how I do the exposure.
Yeah, that's cool.
Is the image you see on the back of the camera, is that kind of altered or kind of natural?
No, it looks completely normal. It looks like you're just seeing visible light when you look. But the image straight out of the camera looks kind of weird. The sky is a little bit like muddy red, and the other stuff is, I guess, a little bluish. And so that's why you're going to channel swap, because nobody wants a sky that's muddy red. So you channel swap so you've got blue in the sky and some shade of yellow in your foliage.
Oh, and the other thing I like that you said, learning the different layers, or working layers. I'm forgetting what they were actually called, but
using layers and masks.
Layers and mask. It just adds so much more to working your regular photography.
Yeah,
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, so once you can get in the once you really get comfortable with using layers and masks, then, like, for example, this image right here.
Adjustment layers, that's what I was looking for.
Adjustment layers, yeah. So I showed this image to Dan, and I did 2 one-hour sessions with him that were 1 week apart. So after the first session, I wanted to show him how I tried to apply what I had learned. So I was proud of myself that I sharpened the top part of the photo and softened the foliage in the bottom. And I adjusted the blue sky to just where I wanted it. And he said, wow, I think you did a great job. There's only one thing I don't like, and this is a nitpick. Probably other people wouldn't notice it, but that sidewalk looks a little blue. So, so anyway, here in this image, I fixed it. But so you go into hue saturation, and you would desaturate the blue or the cyan, whichever it was. But then obviously you're going to have to mask it and only reveal the sidewalk, because otherwise you would screw up the sky. So, but now I'm getting the hang of all that stuff. So.
Tell you what, go ahead and unshare unless you were going to bounce around to a different site.
Okay.
Hi, Charlie.
Elliot will hopefully be back. Plus, I wanted to see everybody again.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to see everybody. How's everyone been?
Hi.
Mhm.
Everybody's
The whole
good.
Kelly family is here.
Yeah. Hi, Courtney.
Yeah.
This is much better viewing than what's on TV right now.
Yeah, I have it on the background. I'm going back and forth.
I'm
Not
not ask, but they-
Just looking at the body language.
Wow. So is anybody interested in trying infrared?
Oh, I am. Absolutely. I just think it's so beautiful when you get those kind of cobalt blue skies and those white or yellow trees on the fairway. I'd love to try that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was so technical.
Yeah, I didn't either. Good thing, right?
you got the hang of it now.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, I would be happy to help you, but if you decide to embark. But the great thing is that I'm really a believer in Life Pixel. There is so much information on that website. There's, all these different things, frequently asked questions, and they even have a wall of shame. And I thought, what's behind that link? Like really horrible photos or what? But no, it's companies that really botched converting a camera. So they're trying to tell you, don't trust another company. Go with us.
Yeah, I rented a full spectrum camera one time a couple years ago, and it came with like a whole set of different filters, because to do it on a sensor that was still taking the visible light, you had to block out a lot of the visible light to kind of tailor it to what you're trying to capture.
Right.
Well, Dan, some more like sciencey stuff with some like near infrared lasers, and
oh wow,
it was interesting, but
well,
I didn't dig into it.
That one of these methods of conversion makes the black and white conversion a real snap. It's that one that had the purple in it that he said it's just like 1, 2, 3, and he told me what you needed to do. I just wrote it down. I didn't remember it. This is all you have to do to create an amazing black and white image. So of course, it's too bad Charlie's listening, but I was thinking, oh, now I need to get another camera and convert it like that.
Is by any chance this guy selling cameras?
Well, he works for Life Pixel. Apparently his wife has a fancy job, so he can do this for a living.
No, it sounds really, really cool. You got into a whole community there, Cathy.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. So we're actually headed down to Florida in November. So I'm looking forward to seeing a different landscape and trying to take some really dramatic photos with the clouds in the sky and like one tree on the landscape and that sort of thing.
Keep us posted on Facebook.